years. What do we actually mean by modern, the modern age, modern Europe? One talks about it quite frequently. But what actually does it mean? At some point in the 19th century, intellectuals, artists, scientists, and political figures began to use the term in a very self-conscious way to describe a set of interrelated developments that had qualitatively and quantitatively changed both the style and substance of social, economic, cultural, and political life in Europe. Those changes, they realized, had not come about overnight, but were the result of a complex series of developments that stretched back at least to the Protestant Reformation of the early 16th century. Those changes, beginning with the Protestant Reformation, were extraordinary in their proportions. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century was a revolution of immense proportions. It was not merely a theological dispute, but a momentous assault on the very foundations of intellectual and spiritual life in the West, affecting everyone from the most humble peasant to the most powerful noble lord. In the process, it posed a revolutionary social and political challenge to the established secular powers of the West, ushering in almost 2 centuries of conflict, religious war, indeed we might say ideological war. One might argue that the wars of the 16th and 17th centuries represent the first modern ideological conflicts in our history, and in their wake the unity of the medieval world, of Christendom, of the West was forever shattered. In the 16th century, at least until the Protestant Reformation, Europeans would have defined themselves first and foremost as Christendom. It was a Christian civilization. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century would bring that sense of unity, that sense of definition of what is Europe, to an unhappy close. Then, in the 17th century, a century so filled with cultural anguish and intellectual ferment, so soaked in the blood of truly ghastly wars, that in no small way it resembles our own 20th century. New structures of political organization would emerge that would mark the rise of the state, the modern state, that in very altered form is still very much with us today. The 17th century would also see the emergence of the so-called scientific revolution that would challenge the spiritual basis of Western thought, throwing into question the received wisdom of centuries, evolving into the philosophical movement that came to be known as the Enlightenment. Those changes had begun a fundamental transformation of European life, restructuring values, attitudes, and practices in a way that had revolutionary implications. At the close of the 18th century, where our course begins, the implications of those far-reaching historical developments erupted with dramatic force in the dual revolutions that shaped the contours of modern European, indeed Western, and global life in the 19th and 20th centuries, and would come to define what we really mean by the modern world. The first of those revolutions, of course, was the French Revolution, the Great Revolution of 1789 to 1799, with its assault on the political institution of monarchy and the social position of aristocracy. It challenged the two fundamental social and political institutions of the established order, an established order which shortly after the outbreak of revolution would be referred to as the ancien regime, or the old regime, a pejorative definition of a society that would not change and had finally been pushed aside by these revolutionary developments. The second great revolution of this period, a revolution that is nowhere nearly as easy to define chronologically, the Industrial Revolution, roughly from the period from 1750 to 1850, with its origins in England just across the Channel, would also fundamentally alter the economic and social bases, first in Europe and then the world. So these two revolutions, the French and Industrial revolutions, are traditionally seen by scholars and others as the two revolutions that define the beginnings of the modern, that distinguish it, that are the dividing line, the watershed between the old established order, early modern Europe it's sometimes referred to, and the modern period. These two momentous developments, these two interlocking revolutions, however, are difficult to imagine without an equally profound transformation, indeed revolution in thought.